A lot of people do not have a follow-up problem. They have a fake follow-up problem. Because the reason why following up feels weird is not usually because reaching out is wrong. It's because most people have been taught to do it in a way that feels forced and transactional and obvious. They've been taught to reach out only when they need something, only when there is an ask, only when they want a favor, only when they want to sell something. Because of that, a lot of thoughtful people start avoiding following up altogether. Not because they don't care, because they do not want to be that person that they want to sound fake. They don't want to sound fake. They don't want to sound needy. They don't want to sound like the people that they're using people. They don't want to sound like they're using people. Instead of following up badly, they just do not follow up at all. That creates a completely different problem, because now good relationships die even before they have a chance to grow. You meet someone genuinely interesting and you have a conversation. You leave them thinking, I should definitely stay in touch with that person. Nothing happens. Not because the connection wasn't real, because you did not know how to continue it naturally. I think this happens way more than people admit it, especially with ambitious people. Builders, founders, creators, operators, professional. People who meet a lot of good people do not have a system for what happens after they first interact. So they just let the moment pass. Once enough time passes, it starts to feel weird. Now it feels like you've missed the window. Now it feels like you need some perfect excuse to reach back out. Now the relationship has become heavier than it should have been. All of that came from one bad assumption. The assumption that following up has to be impressive. It does not. Most people think follow-up needs to be clever or strategic or high value or perfectly timed. Real follow-up is usually much simpler than that. Real follow-up is just continued warmth. That is it. It's not performance. It's not manipulation. It's not trying to squeeze something out of the interaction. It's just showing up that connection mattered enough to continue. Once you understand that, everything changes, because then following up stops feeling this awkward sales move and starts becoming a normal human skill. Honestly, I think this is one of the biggest reasons a lot of people stay stuck socially and professionally. Not because they're untalented, not because they're not likable, not because they do not meet enough people, because they do not know how to keep momentum alive after a good interaction. They do not know how to turn a good moment into an actual relationship. Relationships are built in and after, not just in the first conversation. That is the part most people miss. The first conversation creates opening. The follow-up is what builds the bridge. Without the bridge, the opening closes, and you're left with all of these almost relationships, people you liked, people respected, people you could have built with, people you could have became real friends with, people who you might have opened doors for you later. Because there's no natural continuation of the relationship, it never got that deep. It just stayed in the moment. I think a lot of people have a graveyard of moments like this. People they've met at events, people who they talked to online, people who they've had one amazing call with, people they wanted to stay connected with but never did. Most of the time, the issue was not interest, it was friction. So they did not know what to say, they did not know when to say it, they did not know how to make it feel natural. Let me simplify this. If follow-up feels fake to you, it's usually because of the following three things is happening. Number one, you're reaching out only when you want something. People can feel that. They can feel when the message is carrying hidden pressure. They can feel when the conversation is actually set up for an ask. That is why it feels bad on both sides. Number two, you're trying too hard to sound impressive. You're overthinking the wording. You're trying to sound smart, polished, strategic, perfect. When in reality, the best follow-up is usually sound the most human. Number three, you have no ongoing system for staying warm, which means every message feels like a restart. Every time you reach out, it feels like heavy because too much time has passed. Instead of continuing a relationship, you feel like you are reviving one. Reviving always feels harder than maintaining. That right there is why this matters so much, because the easiest relationships to maintain are the ones you keep lightly warm, not the ones you let go code. then try to rescue later. Try not to do that. Small, consistent contact beats occasional heroic reconnection almost every time. That does not mean messaging people every day. It doesn't mean removing randomness. It means knowing who matters, remembering that what matters to them, reaching out before the relationship becomes awkwardly distant. This is what natural follow-up is actually like. It's not forced, it's not spammy, it's not intense. It's just continued, it's timely, thoughtful continuation. Some people hear that and think, what do I actually say? That is where people overcomplicate things, because a good follow-up usually falls into a few simple categories. You continue a conversation. You reference something they mentioned. You check in on something that mattered to them. You send something that made you think of them. You congratulate them on a win. Or you simply say you enjoyed talking with them and wanted to stay in touch. That's it. It's already more natural than what most people do. Because most people think follow-up has to create some value in some giant way. Sometimes the value is simply being thoughtful. Sometimes the value is just remembering. Sometimes the value is being that rare person who actually follows through. That matters more than people realize. Because in a world of shallow interactions, the person who remembers stands out. The person who circles back stands out. The person who checks in with no immediate agenda stands out. And the person who makes people feel seen also stands out. The craziest part about this is not advanced social tactic. It's basic intentionality. Intentionality has become rare. Rare things feel valuable. This is why follow-up done well has so much power. Not because it's flashy, not because it's uncommon. Most people say we should definitely keep in touch. Very few people actually make that true. And once you start seeing follow-up like that, it becomes a lot less awkward. Because the goal is no longer to impress. The goal is to continue. The goal is to reduce distance. The goal is to keep warmth alive. The goal is to make sure that good people do not disappear because life got noisy. This matters in friendships. This matters in dating. This matters in business. This matters in creative circles. This matters in every environment where relationships shape your life. Because a lot of opportunities in life do not come from just being the loudest person in the room. They come from being the person who stayed connected, the person who kept a relationship warm, the person who remembered positively because you made the connection feel real and easy. This is also why I think a lot of people secretly want to help with follow-up, even if they do not say that in that way, because what they are really saying is, I do not want to lose touch with the people who matter. I do not want good conversations to die for no reason. I do not want every relationship to depend on my memory. I do not want I don't want to feel awkward every time I reach back out. I want to stay connected that feels natural. That is the real desire. I think that desire is bigger than what people realize, because on the surface it sounds like a communication issue. Underneath, it's really about identity. People want to be the perfect person who follows through, the kind of person who remembers, the kind of person who maintains good relationships, the kind of person who does not let people slip through the cracks. When you fail at follow-up consistently, it starts to affect how you see yourself. You start telling yourself, I'm just bad at keeping in touch. I'm bad at relationships. I always let things drift. I do not think that is personality flaw most of the time. I think that's usually a system gap, because being thoughtful once is easy. But being thoughtful consistently in a noisy life is harder. That is where systems matter. Not to make you robotic, to make your care more reliable. Because reliable care, it changes everything. It changes how people experience you. It changes what relationships grow over time. It changes how many opportunities stay alive around you. It changes whether your network feels cold and scattered or warm and real. That is why I care so much about this theme. That's why I care so much about talking about this and expressing this, because the world does not need more fake networking. It needs more thoughtful continuity. It needs more people who know how to stay connected without making it weird. It needs more tools and systems to help people act on the care they already have for each other, instead of leaving every important relationship up to memory and chance. That is a huge part of why I want Everreach to be about. Not just contacts, not just reminders, not just another productivity layer, something that actually helps people follow up like how they humanistically would. Something that helps people stay connected and close to the right people. something that helps warmth last longer than a single conversation. Because if you can solve that very problem in modern life, you can solve almost any relationship. The people you almost built with, the people you almost stay close with, the people you almost turn into something meaningful in your life, all because there is no bridge from one moment to the next. I do not think the bridge should be left to luck. I think it should be supported, because great relationships are not only about who you meet, they're about what happens after you meet them. That is where depth starts. That is where truth starts. That is where future opportunities start. That is where real connection starts. If follow-up has ever felt fake to you, maybe the answer is to not stop reaching out. Maybe the answer is to redefine what follow-up actually is. It's not about pressure. It's not about performance. It's not about pretending. It's just a thoughtful continuation. Once you learn that, you stop asking, how do you sound impressive? How do I sound impressive? You stop asking that. You start asking yourself, how do I make this feel real? The question changes actually everything, because real is what people remember. Real is what people trust. Real is what relationships grow from. The next time you meet someone good or think about someone you've been meaning to reach out to, do not overcomplicate it. Send a simple message. Continue the thread. Reference the thing they mentioned. Check in on the thing they mattered. Keep it warm before it goes cold, because the best follow-up is not the most strategic one. It is the one that feels natural enough to actually happen.